Lord is now stable.
That thunder, you know.
Okay, let's do 3 Oms and Sahana Avatu. Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mamadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Haribo. So we read up to Sloka 23. We'll chant Sloka 23 now. Kutaste kalpita buddhi, kutaste kalpita buddhi, tatra chit pratibimbakaha, tatra chit pratibimbakaha, prananam dharana jivaha, prananam dharana jivaha, samsarena sayujyate, samsarena sayujyate. So Vidyaranya is defining 3 types of or 3 states of consciousness for communication. Not that consciousness has 3 states. And it talks about from the micro and from the macro point. From the micro point, I have a consciousness as though localized at the individual level, which he calls a kutastham. And that which is reflected in the mind by the Chidabhasa and identification with the equipments that I am so and so is Jiva. So Kutastha and Jiva at the micro level. And the same system in the macro level, Brahman and Ishvara. Brahman is total consciousness and Ishvara is reflected consciousness in Maya. So that's how the same analogy works. And from that is the macro scope, macro point. So in the analysis is the reflected consciousness either at a local or at the global drops out, and only the equation is Kutastha becomes equivalent to Brahman. That is becomes a Tattvamasi statement. So he is giving that analogy in terms of an example, taking Ghata Akasha, taking a pot and Ghata Akasha equivalent to Kutastha, and then he fills it up with the water, and the reflection of the total space is occurring in the water that is contained in the pot. And looking at the pot reflection, and you are looking the whole universe of reflected in that pot, in that water, and that it is essentially Jalakasha. So you have a Ghata Akasha, means space in the pot. Now you filled it up, so it can only take that much water as much as the pot can accommodate, and there is a reflection of consciousness, reflection of the akasha, total akasha in that water, and that is called jalakasha. And similarly, you want to project something at the macro scale. Macro scale, you need a macro reflector. So we don't have macro reflector. So he assumes that there is a meghas. Meghas is the clouds, and in that there is a water droplets, and that the megha akasha, that the jalam in that, the water in that can reflect the akasha. So therefore, mahakasha and meghakasha, so those are from the macroscopic point, and ghatakasha and jalakasha from the microscopic point. So this is how he is going to discuss the whole chapter in this, from this term. Now he is going to go at the level of defining a jiva. Who is jiva? When I say I am a jiva, individual, who is that individual is going to be described from sloka 24 on. So let's chant verse 24. Jalavyomna ghatakasho, Jalamvyomna ghatakasho, yatha sarvastirohitaha, sarvastirohitaha, tada jivena kutastaha, tada jivena kutastaha, saha anyonyadhyasa uchyate, anyonyadhyasa. Okay. Jalavyomna ghatakashaha yatha sarvastirohitaha. So when I look at the pot, and there is a water in the pot, and vyomna, the space is reflected in that water, and ghatakashaha yatha sarvaha tirohitaha. Now when I am looking at the space that is reflected in the water, I don't see the pot space anymore. I don't see water anymore. I am only seeing the space that is getting reflected in the water. So what happened to all that pot space and the water that is occupying? That is tirohitaha. That is as though hidden or covered. So in the process, he is giving an example by looking at this reflected space in the water. I am forgetting the fact that there is only pot, and forgetting that it's only pot space that is accommodating the water, and I am even forgetting that there is water there. I am only seeing that there is a space reflected in the water. So right. So here, what is happening? It is being covered, and I am not able to see what is there, but I am seeing something else other than what is there due to reflection. That's what is tirohita means. It is as though hidden or veiled or overshadowed by what? By the jala, the total space that is getting reflected in that water. That called jala vyomna, means jalakasha is. So yatha, just as, in the same way. So just as I don't see the pot space or the water, but I am only seeing the reflected total space in the water. So very beautiful example, because when I am looking at the world, the whole world is as though I am looking at it. And who is looking? I am a conscious entity, so whole world as though is reflected in my thoughts, because when I am looking at any object, it is forming a thought in my mind. So the universe of every object is nothing but a thought in my mind. So what happened to the universe? I am also captured as though as a thought in my mind. If I don't have a thought in my mind, there is no object out there. If the mind is has gone to sleep, I don't see any world. Why? My mind is not reflecting the total space. So the mind is as though reflecting the whole universe in terms of this object, that object. When I am looking at the whole space in the world, the whole space is getting reflected in my mind. Otherwise I won't see it. Follow? So in the same way is the jala. Even though pot is small, even though water containing pot is only small, but I am seeing the reflection of the whole universe of space itself in the water, and I forgot that I am really looking at the reflected space. I think that is real space that I am seeing, just as I am seeing the real space here. So the analogy is really exact. It says tatha In the same way, Jivena Kutastaha Saha Anyonya Adhyasa Vujjate. So Jivena, so by the Jiva, Kutastaha, the one that is consciousness, Tatha, in the same way, as though reflected in the mind, and the reflected consciousness, I am saying, I am conscious entity. When I claim, that's not the original conscious entity. It's only reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, in the mind, and looking at that, I say, I am a conscious entity and I am seeing the world. That's what we are saying. And therefore, there is a Saha, Anyonya Adhyasa, the mutual superimposition. What am I superimposing? I am superimposing the whole universe as though it is reflected in the mind, and say that is the real world. And he's going to talk about Adhyasa much more. Adhyasa means superimposition of something what is not there, but as though it is there. That's what is superimposed, Adhyasa. So essentially, pot space supports the water. And in that space, its reflection is occurring. And in the reflection, that means Kutastha supports. What space is same as the Kutastha, and the mind is same as like a Jalam, and the reflection of the whole universe through the mind is just like perception of the whole universe. So therefore, the Kutastha consciousness at the local level is as though expressed as the total, looking at that reflection only. Be careful among the words are there. Okay. So, Tata Jivena, by the Jiva, it says Kutastaha sa Anyonya Adhyasa Uchyate. So, there is a mutual superimposition. So, this is Adhyasa and Apavada. This is what is Adhyaropa Apavada. That's what Vedanta teaching is going to be. And he is going to explain what this essentially. So anyway, he's going to now explain, so I don't have to explain here. Let's take sloka 25. Ayam jivo nakutastam. Am I saying correctly? Yeah. Okay. Just I wrote it in. Vivinakti kadachana. Anadiravivekoyam Mula Vijjeti Gamyatam. I am Jivaha, this Jiva. Who is this Jiva? The one who is identifying himself with the reflected consciousness that I am. So here it's not only reflection, because Tirohitaha, that's what I didn't explain. Tiro means it is hidden. So Kutastha is hidden. In the previous sloka, when we talk about Jalavyomno Gata Akasa Yada Sarvas Tirohitaha, just as I do not see the space, pot space, because it's covered as though, and I am only seeing the total space reflected in the water. So what happened to the pot space? It is a pot space that is really accommodating. But I am not able to see because it is as though covered. So there is an avarana. Avarana means it is covered, what is there, and seeing something as though it is not whatever the total space I am seeing now. In the same way, Jivaha, the individual, does not recognize the Kutastha. Means it is covered, as though it's covered, means I don't say I am pure consciousness. I am only saying I am local consciousness. So therefore, what happened to that Kutastha is as though covered, just as the reflected space in the water as though covered the pot space. And that is what he is talking about Jiva. Then only notion of Jiva comes when I don't see what I am and recognize only the reflected one as I am really I am. And that becomes a Jiva. So I am Jivaha. This Jiva, this means the one who does not recognize the Kutastha as I am pure consciousness and only seeing the reflected consciousness that I am. And therefore, I am Jivaha. Na Kutastham Vivinakti Kadachana. So Kadachana, at any time, na vivinakti, he has no way of knowing the kutastham. Means pure consciousness he cannot know using as a jiva, because jiva notion itself is because that is covered, as though it is tirohitaha, means it is covered, and he is going to explain why it is covered. Vivinaktikada anadiravivekoyam, this because of which I am not able to recognize that I am the kutastha chaitanyam, that means the total consciousness that is reflected in the local area. I am not able to recognize that because it's as though covered, and I am only looking at the reflected consciousness and saying that I am this. Why? Because I do not know the truth. So therefore, this when it started my not knowing, because it is beginningless, anadi avivekoyam. This aviveka is beginningless. Aviveka means not able to discriminate what is my real nature, what is the reflected nature. So anadi avivekoyam is called mula avidya iti gamyatam. This is known as mula, means the basic ignorance. Basic ignorance means from this ignorance all other ignorance starts. So I don't know chemistry, I don't know all other, no, I don't know everything, because I don't know myself what I am. Because if I know the total, if I know that I am pure consciousness, I am the nature of the knowledge itself, and if I have the knowledge and the essence of all knowledge also, then that's what is called sarvajñah, right? I know everything also. So kasminno bhagavo vijñāte sarvavedam vijñātam bhavati, knowing which I know everything. So please teach me that knowledge, knowing which I know everything. That's what a Vedantic student will ask teacher. How do I know everything? Is as though you know. If I know gold, I know all ornaments in principle, because I know essence of all knowledge. I may not know this ring, that ring, this ring, all the properties of particular rings and bangles, but I know essence. Essence means that which counts. Other things don't count. Count means that's only if you destroy all the names and forms, what is there is only gold. So what I know is the essential knowledge is known, and that lack of that knowledge, because it's covered, is anadi avivekah ayam. This ignorance that is not able to discriminate to knowledge of what is that basis that I am, and taking not as I am, is the mula avidya, is the fundamental ignorance. Iti gamyatam. This may be understood as what is called the fundamental ignorance. This is what is called the original sin. The other religions call it as the original sin. When did I commit a sin? When did I not knowing the truth? From the beginning I don't have. Because avidya cannot start. If avidya starts, that means I was knowledgeable before. Means it started from now on. But avidya, any avidya has to be beginningless, but it can be ended when I gain the knowledge. So if I say I don't know chemistry, so since when you don't know chemistry? From the beginning I don't know chemistry. But when I gain the knowledge of chemistry, that knowledge, that ignorance of chemistry can be eliminated by the knowledge of chemistry. So ignorance of my own self can be ended, even though it's beginningless, it can be ended by the self-knowledge. Follow? Even though it is anadi, it can be ended by the knowledge. So it's a simple example is if we go to a cave and the darkness may be there, from the beginning it was there. Right? From the maybe when the whole thing created, it was there from the darkness. But if I light a candle, even though the beginningless darkness was there before, with the light of a candle, I can illumine the whole cave. So even though the darkness is beginningless, I can end with the candle light. Same way, anadi avidya, even though ignorance is beginningless, the knowledge can eliminate that ignorance. So it's called mula avidya. He's going to explain more about adhyasa and avidya, much more. But here the problem is, these two things are together. What are the two things? Kutastha and reflected, Chidabhasa, are always together. And therefore, I need a viveka. Viveka means to discriminate, to differentiate. That's why when I say, who are you? I say, I am, you start, and you put, I am this. So, in the I am this is called your ahankara. Ahankara means I am so and so is the ahankara. So, therefore, when you say ego is nothing but I am this, and people have great about this, pages of this also, right? How great they are. All this only, but I am you start, plus that means every time these two are together. I cannot say I am and stop there. So if you introduce yourself, you have to say I am, and something else which you are not, you have to say you are that. Why? This ignorance is together, always together. And now what should I do to separate them? That's why we put Hamsa, right? In all our scriptures, they put the divine swan, which it can remove the milk from the water. It has a capacity to separate the milk and the water, because it has a capacity. Same way, I need a viveka, I need a discriminative intellect to separate this, which are always together, what is real part and what is unreal part. For that only I need a viveka. That's why viveka is the one that differentiates between the satyam and that which is nityam and anityam. Nitya, anitya, vastu viveka. Ha. That's how Shankara defines the viveka. So, vivinakti kadachana, anadir avivekoyam. This aviveka means not able to discriminate this, the kutastham and the reflected consciousness. I'm not able to separate because they are always together. And one is subtle and another is grosser. That's another problem also. And therefore, it's very difficult to separate. It's not a physical mixture. It is intellectually, cognitively I have to separate what is the real and what is unreal. And that's why Viveka becomes one of the qualifications for a Vedantic student. And so there are two things. One is the substratum, another is the superimposition. Substratum is that which supports. So Kutastha is the one. Kutastha means the local consciousness as though in the individual level. So that it supports the reflected consciousness, just as the pot space, the local pot space supports the water and therefore supports the reflection of the whole space in that water. In the same way, the reflection, the consciousness that I am supports the Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness in the mind, and in the reflected consciousnness, the whole universe is getting reflected in the mind, and therefore this is the Adhara, another is Adheya. One is the substratum, another is the support, which is supported by that. And these two always occur together. So the examples are given, we did the cloth, remember, the pata, where there is a white cloth is a basic support, on top of which we have a paintings of different colors, and if I look and getting carried away, not knowing that there is a cloth supporting, and looking at those figures and think that that's real, then therefore I am forgetting that which is supporting. But this cloth and the painting are together always. I cannot remove the cloth one side and the painting on the other side. They are always together. But in and through looking at the painting, I have to recognize the cloth that is supporting the painting. In the same way, in and through looking at my own self, I have to separate what is the consciousness and what is the reflected consciousness in that. I had to do that. That is what is called the vivekam, the discriminative intellect. So how do I do separate? Only through the viveka, only through the cognitive, by using intelligence only. I need the vichara, inquiry is required in order to do that. And he is going to explain more as we go along. We will see how he unravels this slowly, step by step. So let's do sloka 26. Vikshepa vritti rupabhyam, kshepa vritti rupabhyam, dvida vidya vyavastita, vidya nabhati nasti kutastha, nasti kutastha ichyapadanamavrutihi. So here they say this Anadi Avidya, he just introduced the Mula Avidya. Now he goes into more details of Mula Avidya. Mula Avidya means fundamental ignorance. Because I don't know myself, then if I don't know myself, then whatever relationship I can't make establish outside, also they will be crowded with this knowledge of not knowing myself. So this has two components. This Avidya has two components. One is Vikshepa and Avrutti, Rupabhyam. So in the form of two, it is expressing, one is Vikshepa, projecting power, and Avrutti, the covering power. These are two aspects of involved. Vikshepa, Avrutti, Rupabhyam, Dvida, Avidya, Vyavasthita. So Vyavasthita, it exists in two forms. Dvida, this Avidya, this ignorance. One is Vikshepa, another is Avrutti, Rupabhyam. So he is defining now that Mula Avidya has two components. One is the covering part, another is the projecting part. These are part of the Avidya. So here Avidya has the capacity, it's not just the ignorance, has the capacity to cover and also has the capacity to help in projecting. Not that it projects, it helps in the projection of, because of not knowing, the mind and consciousness projects something else what is there. And this Vikshepa and Avrutti is going to tell. And how does it expresses itself? Na bhati, na asti, kutastam, iti apadanam avrutihi. So this covering of Avrutti, Avrutti means covering, how does it expresses? It expresses in two forms. So he is giving a systematic analysis. First, he takes a Mula Vidya. Mula Vidya has two components. One is Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. So Swami Chimayanji says it is non-apprehension is Avarana Shakti and misapprehension is the projecting power. So these two are there and it expresses as in two ways. And one is Nabhati and Na-asti. What is it? Kutastha. Na-asti. There is no pure consciousness anywhere. Na-asti. It is not there. That's one way of expression. Na-bhati. I have no experience of the Kutastha Chaitanyam. This is the second. Iti apadanam. This is our general expression of experience of any individual by the jiva. Avrutihi. This avruti, the covering, expresses. So how do we explain this? So simple example is, if I go to a dream state, so I am sleeping in the air-conditioned room and AC room and then all comforts and all that. Now when I go to a dream state, I am dreaming as though I am in the forest and there is a hot sun and blazing sun is there. Remember, I am in the dark room sleeping. And here I am projecting the dark sun in the forest. Now, what happened? Because I forgot that I am sleeping in the AC room. So there is a covering of Nidra Shakti. Nidra Shakti is same as the ignorance at an individual level. Nidra Shakti has Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. Same. Avarana Shakti means covering that I am comfortably sleeping in the AC room. That is covered. Now Vikshepa, now I am projecting the whole universe there. So the Vikshepa is coming out. Avarana means I don't know that I am sleeping in the AC room. Nobody, the dreamer will not think that I am sleeping comfortably in the AC room. He will be thinking that I am only in the forest. So what happened? He is actually sleeping in the AC room. So that is covered. So therefore, Nabhati, I am waker. And Nasti, there is no waker here. There is only I am here in the hot sun. What do you mean, AC room and all that? What are you talking? So Nabhati, na asti. So those are the two expressions of a dreamer in the dream about the waker, right? He doesn't know that he is really waker, sleeping comfortably there. And it's dark, whereas here it is completely bright. Iti apadanam avruti. This is what is called the avruti, the covering of. And here, if you go a little bit more deeper, say na bhati na asti. There's two expressions. One is called avruti. Vruti, actually vruti is a thought process. It's called vruti, means thought. So if you go to epistemologically, whatever I see in the perception, when I see an object, it is transmitted to my mind as a vruti. So that is as a thought raises off. So when there is a thought, each thought is centered on an object that I see. If I see a chair, there is a chair thought in my mind. So chair vruti is there. Vruti is a thought. So avruti means as though it is covered and expresses itself in, again, vruti form that I don't know. So therefore, the statements here is, one is I don't know. I don't know is a statement. Okay? And that is also a vruti. That's also says, do you know Gaga Boo? Say, I don't know. That means I don't know is a thought that rises in your mind. Looking at your knowledge of, this Gaga Boo, and says, there is no information about Gaga Boo in my mind, and then you express itself at that thought to communicate. So there are two ways. One is thought rises in the mind, and then you express through the sound that you communicate to me that I don't know. What? I don't know Gaga Boo, whatever. Okay? So therefore, one is the experience of the absence of the knowledge of this. Okay, so I'm using specifically. One is the experience of the absence of the knowledge of Gaga Boo. Another is that knowledge is being communicated through the Shabdam, is that I don't know what is Gaga Boo. Otherwise, I won't know that you know it or not. So you communicate Shabda Pramana. So there are two things. One, Nabhati and Nasti. It is not there. Number one, and I am not experiencing at all. And this is what is essentially Avarna Shakti. There are two things. So how does it experience? So normally if you go to say, do you know that you are conscious entity all pervading? You say, I don't know. 99 people don't even worry about all this because they have no concept of what this is all about, right? This is one aspect of it. Then they have misconcept of saying that there is a God and all that. All other things again are being projected because I am local guy, I am an individual with a jiva, and that is conformed. And therefore there is a creation, there is an Ishvara separate from me, and all that, and all scriptures, some scriptures will emphasize that also. And that's all the end of it. Some people, even Vedanta emphasizes up to some point to take you, to prepare your mind. But if that's all the end of it, then that is the problem. You say, this is for only first class you want to sit and that's all the end of it, then you will never grow up. A for apple, B for boil, only you will have that knowledge. But I have to go to graduate to next level until the whole thing becomes clear. That is what is the Adhyaropa Apavada. They go step by step. They impose deliberately, there is a Lord, there is this one, and all that is Adhyasa, because Lord is also Adhyasa. Just now we said, from the macroscopic point. We need that to prepare the mind so that my mind is not so on. But you need ultimate knowledge, that which is going to be discussed here. So here, that's why this text is more for the advanced students, where even that has to be dropped out, and that's what has to be understood clearly. So not only that I don't know is one aspect of it. Now the wrong information is also fed in. Wrong means it may be intermediate information, but required for a growing up. But if that is taken as the real, then I have a real problem. I only will be staying, and that's why we have a quarrel between Dvaitins, Visishtadvaitins and all that. Why? Because that is only Lord and this is the way that all that is initial stages are taken as that is the end stage itself, and then we have a problem also. All that part of is avidya only. Okay, so one has to be very careful how this is being, Avarana Shakti comes into picture. And when you have a miscomprehensions wrong knowledge, then you have double problem, where first you have to eliminate that wrong problem to get another right problem. So that's why Vedanta becomes very difficult, because you have to drop all your wrong notions about what you learned before and then go beyond that. Then only, that's what is Viveka is required in that. Then go to the sloka 27. Ajnani vidusha prushtah Jnani vidusha prushtah kutastam na prabudhyate kutastam na prabudhyate nabhati nasti kutastha bhati nasti kutastha iti buddha vadatyapi said right, okay? Iti buddha vadatyapi. So vadati api. So here, this is one of the very interesting sloka of Vidyaranya. Avidya. So ajnani, the one who has no knowledge of this aspect of it, because Mula Avidya he defined. So one who has the knowledge of this is the one who is Jnani, and if we don't know, then it is Avidya. So here there are two problems. Avidya means not knowing it. Not knowing it, even though not knowing is one aspect of it, not knowing that I don't know also is another aspect of it. So many people, if you ask, he says, is there Mula Vidya? Do you know about Kotastha Chaitanya? If not Kotastha, about Lord or anything. So they won't even bother about it. Right? Why? Because not only they don't know, but they don't know that they don't know also. So even the concept of they have ignorance is also they don't know. So you follow it, avidya. So avidya is occurring at a two level. So if I ask question, say, do you know Gaga Boo? You will ask, I don't know. But if I didn't ask about Gaga Boo, you won't even raise a question about is there a Gaga Boo or not, right? That question even doesn't arise in your mind. Only when I ask you, is there a Gaga Boo? He says, this guy is asking some Gaga Boo, I don't know. Now you went into search of your mind to look, is there information about Gaga Boo? Have I learned anything about Gaga Boo? He says, I'm just giving example that you are familiar. And then look into it, says, yes, I don't know. That means you know that you don't know now. Before that, you don't know that you don't know even. So there are two avidyas, and once I recognize that I don't know avidya, then avarana shakti. So in this sloka, he is differentiating even these two, avidya and the project avarana shakti. He is very making a subtle difference. So he says ajnani. So the one who does not know and who does not know that he does not know, taking him, and if vidusha prashtaha, so now he goes and encounters a knowledgeable person, and the knowledgeable person asks you, hey, do you know Kutastha Chaitanyam? Do you know the pure consciousness behind? Who is asking? A vidusha, a knowledgeable person is asking. So here the Vidyaranya using a very specific word. Vidusha means not somebody, Tom, Dick and Harry. A knowledgeable person means a knowledgeable person doesn't ask unnecessarily unless there is some Kutastha Chaitanya that if you want to know whether you know it or not. That means there is something that which I don't know. That means the fellow will now answer, sir, I don't know. Means now he recognizes, since a wise person is asking, there must be something that is Kutastha Chaitanyam and there which I don't know now. So that's two aspects involved. Before that, I don't know that I don't know. Now at least I know that I don't know. Why? Because this Vidusha is asking a question, and he is asking a question why? That is there, do you know Kutastha Chaitanya? That means there must be something, because he doesn't ask like Gaga Bubu or something. He is asking about something that which he knew and therefore which exists and which need to be known also. That's why he is called Vidusha. He is a wise person, and a wise person doesn't go around everybody, you know, you want to know, do you know this and all that. So one has to approach a wise person. That's why tadvidhi pranipatena pariprasne. You go and ask the teacher. So we are not going to ring the bell to everybody's house and says, do you believe in do you believe in the Lord? Or otherwise you go to hell and all those. We don't tell, because if you want to know, come and know. Otherwise you continue your life until you come to know. So just like I give an example, the scientists, physicists doesn't go and ring everybody else. Do you want to know gravitational force and all that? He says, if you want to know, come to me, I will teach you. He doesn't have to ring the bell and tell him that there is a gravitational force and F is equal to ma and all those things. He doesn't have to go and ring the bell, otherwise you go to hell if you don't know. All that we doesn't have to, because this is a knowledge which is absolute knowledge, and only when I want to know and need to know, then only the knowledge can take place. Otherwise it will not. So therefore, when Vidusha Pushta, how did Vidusha Pushta? Because he went to asked Vidusha, okay, so I want to know. Therefore he asked, do you know the truth? Then only I can teach you. So therefore his answers will be the response to the question that is posed by the wise person. So all that is implied in the statement here. Ajnani vidusa pushtaha kutastam na prabhujyate. Says, have you experienced, do you know about the Kutastha Chaitanya? It says, I do not know, na prabhujyati. I have no knowledge of the Kutastha Chaitanya. Kutastha Chaitanya means pure consciousness that is all pervading and that is expressing through me. That I don't know. And that expression, when he responds, first he has to understand the question and goes into his mind and inquire into his own mind. He says, does it exist? Does knowledge exist? No. Have I ever experienced the Kutastham? No. So, nabhati nasti Kutastaha. So, when I respond to it, that is Buddhva and Vadati api. So, Buddhva, intellectually I went into analysis of, is there Kutastham? I have no knowledge. I have no knowledge of it. I don't have experience of it. Okay. So Buddha is through the experience, Vadati to the Shabda Pramana, to expression also. In both ways, first intellectually I don't have it, then also verbally that is expressed. Vadati api iti expresses that to the intellect. That means, what is that? It is covered. And now only when a wise person or a Vedanta or Vedanta, using Vedanta, if wise person asks, have you inquired into it? Says, I don't know. So therefore, tadvidhi pranipatena, that is, to know that only you approach a teacher. Or says, tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva abhigacche. For that knowledge only you approach a teacher. What kind of knowledge there? I want to be happy. Not that Kutastha Chaitanya. That also is parikshalokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayan nascha krutakrutena tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva abhigacche. When I inquire, when I found out that I cannot get the happiness that I want, eternal happiness that I want, by any pursuit in life, because every pursuit is finite and finite pursuit will give you finite happiness. Therefore, I am longing for infinite absolute happiness that I cannot get by any action. Therefore, for that inquiry, how do I get infinite happiness so that this struggle goes away? For that you approach a teacher. And the teacher will ask you, do you know the absolute truth, that Kutastha Chaitanyam and all that? This is what comes. Nabhati nasti. So, avidya is not knowing. And when I express itself as avarana shakti, it is covered. I don't know and I have never experienced. And even I know as a pratyaksha, even there I say Nabhati, even I have not experienced. People will say, why? Oh, I have studied Vedanta. I know now about Brahman. So, asti, I know all that, but still nabhati, I have not experienced. That means he is longing for experience. So, that's also another problem. So, bigger problem is One is not knowing and not experiencing. Another thing is knowing and experiencing as though it is an object of experience. That is another problem. And in fact, that is a bigger problem for many of the Vedantists. That is a last obstacle, because I am longing for something to happen. It's not something to happen, it's something to know only. It is that pure knowledge, because this is pratyaksha. That's why he says aparoksha and paroksha. It is directly right there. What? That I am. All I have to do is I have to drop all my wrong notions about I am and recognize it. This claim that I am the pure consciousness which is infinite. That is Aham Brahmasmi, has to be understood. So here Vidyaranya is making a subtle difference between avidya and avarana shakti. Distinction is being made. So what is the problem? If you understand, pure consciousness, and that is reflected in the buddhi as a chidabhasa. So that is a reflected consciousness, and the reflected consciousness is the one that is trying to answer the question. Kutastha Chaitanya has nothing to do with it. Okay, it is only, say, why are you reflecting unnecessarily here? He says, no, I am not doing any reflection. Just like sun is, you can ask sun, why are you shining all this moon and everything in the sky? He says, I have nothing to do with it. I am self-shining and it's my glory to shine. But the moon, because it is there in the sunlight, it has a capacity to reflect the sunlight, therefore it reflects. And therefore, if you ask the moon, not knowing that I am getting reflected light from the sun only, I am reflecting, and the luminosity is coming from the sun only, not from myself, and if he thinks that, not knowing the sun, thinks that I am self-illuminating because I am shining, and if he thinks that I am self-shining, it's the moon that is having a problem. It's the mind that is a consciousness which is reflected as a chidabhasa. They call moonabhasa, chandrabhasa, or that which is reflected. The moon thinks that I am a luminous entity by myself, and therefore I can illumine anything in the world. So it illumines, see, I am illuminating on a full moon night, I am illuminating the whole world there outside. You can see in my light only all the objects in the moonlight. So moon has a misconceptions about not knowing, because it has covered as though that the knowledge is covered that I am only a medium, the reflection is occurring, and the reflected light of moon is taking that, because when consciousness is getting reflected in the mind, it becomes alive. You remember that's what he said already. Jiva, life becomes alive. Therefore, Jiva comes into picture, a living being entity, and it is the one that having a misconceptions. For all that has to be understood here. Pure consciousness has no problem. It has no moon, nothing, no mind, everything else. Only a reflected consciousness is having a problem. So who has the ajnana? Ajnana is in the chidabhasa, reflected consciousness, identifying myself, I am this mind and I am this body. So from the buddhi, the mind and rest of the body, grosser and grosser. So I am only this, because I do not know. That becomes a mula vidya. And the pure consciousness has nothing to do with it. So where is the ignorance? Ignorance is in the jiva. Because he doesn't know that I am pure consciousness that is getting reflected. Now there is an objection here. That's why I am giving all that introduction. In the sloka 28, it said, you say pure consciousness. Kutastam is pure consciousness. It illumines everything. Now you say avidya. You say ignorance. Ignorance is like darkness, and consciousness is like light. How can Kutastha, the light and the darkness together will be there? So this is not a common problem. You say, who has the avidya? It become a problem. Who has the ignorance? This is a Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, all are questioned these things exhaustively. Well, in fact, Ramanuja says 7 untenables against avidya of Advaita Vedanta. So here, the logician is asking a question here. Logician called Nyaya Vaiseshikas. They are Nayayikas and Vaiseshikas, together called Nyaya Vaiseshikas, and they are called Tarkikas. All are, they're all philosophers. And now a logician is asking a question, how can there be a light and a darkness together? This is illogical. So he's essentially, logically, he is dismissing all the arguments that are presented here. That's in the sloka 28. Swaprakashe kuto vidya, Swaprakashe kuto vidya, tam bina khatam avrutihi, bina khatam avrutihi. Ichadi tarkajalani, ichadi tarkajalani, swanubhutir grasatyasau, swanubhutir grasatyasau. So, swaprakashe kutaha avidya, swaprakashe kutastaha. So, kutaha avidya, where can there be ignorance when it is self-shining, self-illuminating and self-knowledgeable? So, it is Swayam Prakasham, that is called the Kutastha. So how can there be the ignorance in the Kutastha? Tam vina khatam avrutihi. So without that, how can that be possible? Without that ignorance, how can there be avrutihi? Means the veiling, concealing. First you need to invoke avidya. And avidya has 2 components. One is avruti, covering, and vitshepa. Now, first of all, before you go all that, first, how can there be even ignorance to start with? So, where is the ignorance? Who has the ignorance? That is a fundamental question in the Vedanta. Here, with one sweep, Vidyaranya dismissal, Ichadi tarkajalani, like this kind of questions you are asking by logically, Swanubhutir grasatyate. Sir, you are asking all this logical question, that is where light and darkness, how can they be together? But the problem is everybody has ignorance. Are you conscious entity? Yes, I am conscious entity. Are you ignorant about it? Yes, I am ignorant. So that's their pros. Even though you are conscious entity, you are ignorant of this. So avidya and ignorance are together already. Swanubhuti means that is the experience of common people. Everybody. Now just to go into a little detail, who has the avidya? A fundamental question. Remember, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that which is the definition of Brahman. Satyam, Jnana Swarupam. It's not a Jnanam of knowledge of, it's an absolute knowledge, and that is Anantam, infinite. And Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness which is infinite. So there cannot be avidya in the Brahman, right? But that is the nature of Brahman. So from Brahman point there is no avidya. That's first statement. Now where is, if I say now we are avidya, we are talking about, we don't know Brahman, right? So there is avidya. So where is avidya? It is in Brahman only. Why? Because there cannot be anything other than Brahman. Brahman means infinite, and infinite means it cannot exclude anything. Therefore, if at all there is something, it has to be in Brahman only. If it is outside the Brahman, then Brahman is not no more Brahman. Follow that logic? Therefore, where is the avidya? It's in the Brahman only. Sir, just now you said there is no avidya in the Brahman. Yes. But now, because you are asking a question, now I am answering a question. And therefore, you have to understand clearly this, what is called ontological problem here. Ontological means the degree of realities. Okay? That's called, ontology is a degree of reality. From the absolute point, there is no avidya, there is no ajnani, there is no jnani also. And there is no self-realization also. Brahman doesn't have to realize. Okay? That has to be clear. Now, where is the problem? Problem is, I think I am a local guy. I have already understood I am in the local guy, and then asking this question, and I want a Vedanta teaching. So it is Vedanta is only teaching to a fellow who doesn't know that I am Brahman. Right? Now, who has Ajnana? First way, statement. Statement is, whoever doesn't know that I am Brahman, obviously he has Ajnana. Why? Because he doesn't know. So who has the Ajnana? Jiva says, I don't know Brahman. Therefore, Jiva is the locus of Ajnana, the first statement. But where is Jiva? Jiva is in Brahman only. He cannot be separate from Brahman. So Brahman has Ajnana. But how can that be possible? It's only possible at the local, for the time being, as long as I have a notion that I am a Jiva, then he has an Ajnana because he has that notion. But once I realize that I am pure Brahman, what do you say? Nitya Mukta Swarupoham. I am eternally liberated. What do you mean Ajnana? Ignorance that I never had, I lost. Because I was never ignorant. From the point of absolute point, there is no ignorance at all. So, that's why there is a degree of reality has to be understood here. From the lonely local point, this Vedanta itself is itself teaching, and from the absolute point there is no Vedanta also. So that question of all these things will not come. Only for a fellow who thinks that I am a local Jiva and he wants to know the truth, to him the scripture comes to a level and teaches him, there is, you have Ajnana and you can learn, and that learning is through the process of Vedanta. And once he learns, what does he do? He realizes there is no Ajnana even. That's a part of the knowledge also. Remember I gave the example of the chain. Those who attend, okay, the wife gave the American chain, which is very thin, right, 14 carat, so it cannot be seen properly. So this fellow was so proud that my wife gave me that chain. So he wanted to show off to his friend. So he went all the way 4 miles, and hey, see, look at the beautiful chain my wife gave. And says that fellow, look at it, hey, that's very good, congratulations and all that. And they get into a lot of other conversations because they are meeting after a long time. And then he comes back home, and suddenly he finds there is no chain. And he knows wife will be coming back soon, and she will be asking, where is my chain? Because so this fellow, he says, my God, I don't know where it dropped. I said, I might have left it on my friend. He looked all over, it's not there. He ran 4 miles to his friend, and friend he said, what happened? Hey, you remember I was showing my chain and I might have left it here? And says, friend looked at it and it's was there in his neck only because it's so thin you cannot see it. Hey, you have it. So he is glad that he has this. That means he never lost it. So now the question is, was the 4 miles of running necessary to discover the chain? If we say it's not necessary, but he will be agitated if he doesn't go all the way and then find out, because he is restless. He wants the chain, and before his wife comes. So therefore he has to go to his 4 miles is necessary for him to. So the truth is, 4 miles of running is necessary to discover that 4 miles of running is not necessary. Follow? So therefore all this Vedanta is necessary to discover that I am Brahman even before I know all this also. But this Vedanta reveals that knowledge. So therefore that ignorance is a different order of reality that has to be understood. Oh, I got carried away. It's already 10:30 now. So prakashe kuto vidya tam vinashakata ichadi tarkajalani swanubhutir grasitse. So by direct experience, everybody says I don't know, and therefore they have knowledge of the ignorance of this when I get exposed to it, and therefore there is locus in the Jiva, and Jiva is not separate from the Brahman. So you can also say it is also in the Brahman, because the argument of Ramanuja also is Jiva is a product of avidya, right? So that means it was there before Jiva came. So how can he have ignorance? He is already produced because of ignorance only. Then it's only in Brahman. If Brahman, how can the Brahman will have ignorance? So this is the whole avidya of Vedanta is wrong. That's what his argument. Our argument is Brahman doesn't have ignorance, but from the Jiva point, the ignorance is there and is not separate from Brahman. Therefore, we say Brahman, ignorance is also in Brahman, but ontologically is unaffected by the avidya. So it is a degree of different reality. So just as gold is there and a ring is there, the ring is not different from gold, but yet ring is different from gold. So transactionally ring is different from gold, but from the essence point it's not different from gold. That's why Krishna also says, Maya tadamim sarvam jagad avyakta murtina mastani sarva bhutani, all beings are in me. Immediately, natamastani bhutani, no beings are in me. So both are correct, but one from the point of ontologically, the two different statements. From the point of transactionally, the first statement. From the point of absolute, there is no jiva of anything. So both are essentially true. But the ignorant is the one who thinks that there is an individual separate from the Lord, and Lord is Vishwarupa, and there are individuals, and all that is essentially at that level. He thinks they are not two separate but one entity also. And ityadi tarka jalani swanubhutur grasishyase. So direct experience tells you that there is avidya, and at the same time you claim you are a conscious entity. So consciousness and avidya, ignorance, which is of the nature of darkness, can go, but it can be removed. So how it can be removed? By vritti jnanam. Because avrutihi, because it's a knowledge of the ignorances I do not know, is a knowledge at the level of vritti. There is constant vritti that I don't know, that can only be removed by another vritti. Ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasad vinirmalam krutva jnanam swayam nasi jalam katakarena vatu. This is in the Atma Bodha. So Ajnana Kalusham Jivam Jnanabhyasad Nirmalam. It can be purified by Jnana. But whatever this knowledge, Vritti Jnana, removes the other Vritti together, and what is left is pure consciousness that is eternally pure all the time. And that's what is the statement that we are going to do after we come back. So let's do the Purnamada right now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So Sloka Chapter 6 V23-28.